What is likely the most bizarre of modern Christian holidays is Easter. While claiming to be a holiday commemorating the resurrection of Christ, Easter is celebrated with colored eggs and accoutrements of rabbits or bunnies. But where did such symbols come from? And how did the Easter holiday become linked to modern Christianity? Did the Messiah in fact rise from the dead on Easter Sunday? Or could it be that the most significant of professing Christian holidays is in fact a far cry from the faith once delivered to the saints? To find out, stay tuned. Greetings and great hope from the world to come. All around the world, billions of people annually celebrate the holiday of Easter during the spring season. Believing that the observance commemorates the resurrection of Jesus, Easter is surprisingly celebrated with accoutrements of bunnies, colored eggs, baked ham, hot cross buns, and confections of all kinds. But have you ever wondered where such symbolism came from? Well, even if you haven't, this is something that all who celebrate Easter should deeply be concerned about. Let's consider first the most well-known and popular custom of Easter, that is colored, dyed, or painted Easter eggs. Coloring eggs for Easter is a tradition enjoyed by most of its celebrants. But how did colored eggs become a part of this holiday? Are such activities found in the Bible? Easter eggs are not found in the Bible, and the reason is because Easter actually has nothing to do with true Christianity. In fact, the oldest religious use of the egg dates back to the superstitious traditions of Egypt and Babylon. As historian James Bonwick wrote, eggs were hung up in Egyptian temples. Bunsen calls attention to the mundane egg, the emblem of generative life proceeding from the mouth of the great god of Egypt. The mystic egg of Babylon, hatching the Venus Ishtar, fell from heaven to the Euphrates. Dyed eggs were sacred Easter offerings in Egypt, as they still are in China and Europe. Easter, or spring, was considered the season of birth, terrestrial and celestial. Alexander Hislop did extensive research about paganism in our age, and he also wrote, "From Egypt, these sacred eggs can be distinctly traced to the banks of the Euphrates. The classic poets are full of the fable of the mystic egg of the Babylonians. An egg of wondrous size is said to have fallen from heaven into the river Euphrates. The fishes rolled it to the bank, where the doves, having settled upon it, hatched it, and out came Venus, who afterwards was called the Syrian goddess, that is, Astarte. Hence the egg became one of the symbols of Astarte, or Easter." The Babylonian connection to the Easter egg is well documented throughout history. Heathen ideology regarding eggs, Astarte, Ishtar, and Easter gravitated to a wide variety of pagan cultures throughout Middle East and Europe. And despite the well-known use of eggs in the worship of false gods, papal authorities of Rome sanctioned its use and attempted to change its symbolism to that of Christ's resurrection. As the Encyclopedia of Religion states, the Church did not oppose this, though many egg customs were pre-Christian in origin, because the egg provided a fresh and powerful symbol of the resurrection and the transformation of death into life. Ethel Yerlin also explained how the Catholic Church frequently integrated paganism into its liturgy in an attempt to convert masses of unbelievers. She wrote, "The custom of giving eggs at Easter is very ancient and worldwide. Among the ancient Persians, eggs were given at this time of the year because of the vernal equinox which began the year." The ritual of Pope Paul V Christianized the pagan custom in the prayer that, "Thy creature of egg may be a wholesome sustenance to thy faithful servants, eating it in thankfulness on account of the resurrection of our Lord." Ladies and gentlemen, as innocent as Easter eggs may seem to most people, they truly have no place as a religious symbol in true Christianity. Why, the origin is not Christian at all, but came from the fables of heathen who worshipped the fertility goddesses of Venus, Astarte, Ishtar, and the Germanic Eostre. In this regard, the Apostle Paul said that such behavior actually exchanges the truth of God for a lie, and it is a form of worshiping and serving the creation rather than the Creator. Modern-day pagans understand this truth about Easter eggs, and they continue to use eggs in their Easter celebrations. Why, notice what another encyclopedia says regarding the ancient misuse of both eggs and rabbits. The Easter bunny was older than Christianity. It was the moon hare sacred to the goddess in both Eastern and Western nations. Recalling the myths of Hathor Astarte, who laid the golden egg of the sun, Germans used to say that the hare would lay eggs for good children on Easter Eve. The Persians began their solar new year at the spring equinox, and up to the middle of the 18th century they still followed the old custom of presenting each other with colored eggs on the occasion. This quote leads us to discussing another popular symbol of Easter, the cute and cuddly Easter bunny. Most celebrants would be shocked to discover that this Easter mascot is also connected to pagan rites. According to the pages of history, many Easter customs come from the old world. Colored eggs and rabbits have come from pagan antiquity as symbols of new life. This is also noted by scholars of world religions who wrote, "The rabbit was known as an extraordinarily fertile creature, and hence it symbolized the coming of spring." Although adopted in a number of Christian cultures, the Easter bunny had never received any specific Christian interpretation. As historians and scholars recognize, there is not and should never be Christian interpretations for the Easter bunny. Well, this is not surprising when we begin to realize that Easter is not a Christian holiday. Why, even the Catholic Encyclopedia recognizes this truth, and they wrote, "A great many pagan customs celebrating the return of spring gravitated to Easter. The egg is the emblem of the germinating life of early spring. The rabbit is a pagan symbol and has always been an emblem of fertility." Another intensive study about the origins of modern holidays led Ethel Yerlin to write, "In some places, hares instead of or combined with eggs are given as presents at Easter. This is a survival of the connection of the hare in Teutonic myths with Eostre or Ostara, the goddess of dawn and spring." In another more recent quote, the popular History Channel published an article on their website stating, "You won't find them in the Bible, but many cherished Easter traditions have been around for centuries. The most prominent secular symbol of the Christian holiday, the Easter bunny, reportedly was introduced to America by the German immigrants who brought over their stories of an egg-laying hare." And this is what Ethel Yerlin referred to when she mentioned the rabbit in Teutonic myths. The Easter bunny clearly had its origins in pre-Christian fertility lore. They were the most fertile animals people could think of, being sexually mature by 4.5 months of age, and they have a breeding season that lasts 3/4 of the year. Superstitious and ungodly people connected the animal to their spring fertility gods as a symbol of new life. Despite the heathen history, rabbits continue to be used by hundreds of millions who claim to honor Jesus Christ during the holiday of Easter. But it should not be so. Why, even the name of the holiday itself should be a clue that this observance is not Christian. Notice what Grollier's Encyclopedia has to say about this ancient pagan festival. The name Easter is derived from the pagan spring festival of the Anglo-Saxon goddess Eostre, and many folk customs associated with Easter are of pagan origin. It is clear to all historians that Easter is not Christian. Why, the expression came from Eostre, the name of a pagan goddess. But the name is not unique to the ancient Anglo-Saxon tribes. Eostre was known as Ishtar in Babylon. She was Astarte in Greece. Ostara was her name in Assyria. Egypt called this fertility goddess Isis. It was Ashur in Phoenicia. This false god was also known as Ashtoreth among many Canaanite tribes, and it was a pagan deity mentioned in the Bible as being a snare to the nation of Israel. The reason some find it hard to make the connection between Astarte, Ashtoreth, Ishtar, Eostre, and Easter is because the name of this pagan goddess varied depending on the language and the region of its worship. Why, notice what the respected historian Will Durant wrote about this false fertility deity. Ishtar was the goddess of war as well as of love, of prostitutes as well as of mothers. She was represented sometimes as a bearded bisexual deity, sometimes as a nude female offering her breasts. Astarte was the Greek of the Phoenician Ishtar. She had the distinction of being worshipped in some places as the goddess of a cold, Artemisian chastity, and in others as the amorous and wanton deity of physical love. As Ishtar Mylida received in sacrifice the virginity of her girl devotees at Babylon, so the women who honored Astarte at Byblos had to give up their long tresses to her or surrender themselves to the first stranger who solicited their love in the precincts of the temple. Religious prostitution flourished. The sacrifice of virginity at the temples was not only an offering to Astarte, but a participation with her in that annual self-abandonment which, it was hoped, would offer irresistible suggestion to the earth and ensure the increase of plants, animals, and men. As shocking as this may be to you, the history of Easter is well documented. It is not and will never be a true Christian holiday, and Easter should not be celebrated by anyone who claims to believe in the God of the Bible. And to help you understand more about this truth, Quest for Truth is offering a free booklet. The Eternal Church of God produces a variety of free literature to help people understand Christian living and prophecy. Today we are featuring the booklet titled The Truth About Easter. This booklet discusses the pagan origins of traditions such as colored eggs, the Easter bunny, sunrise services, and why the resurrection was not on Sunday. In fact, the Eternal Church of God offers another booklet dedicated to this truth, that Jesus Christ was in fact not resurrected on Sunday, as so many have been taught. Our literature is offered free as a service in the public interest with no undesired follow-up. You may visit our website to read or request these booklets, or stay tuned, and at the end of this program, we will show you how to receive a free copy of The Truth About Easter, or The Resurrection Was Not on Sunday. The ancient history of Easter is insurmountable and undeniable. With very little effort, a visit to any library or a search on the internet will result in dozens of quotes from credible historians regarding Easter's pagan past. The question now is, how did Easter become a holiday celebrated by the vast majority of professing Christianity? Are believers allowed to redeem pagan holidays and to use them in honor of the God of the Bible? These questions can also be answered by thumbing through the pages of history. And when we do, we find that the expanding Roman Empire joined with an apostate church, and they formed an unholy alliance that adopted holidays and traditions of pagans in an attempt to convert the people within its jurisdiction. I consider just a few quotes from the many sources documenting this blasphemous practice. The clergy had believed it necessary to hasten the conversion of the masses of people whom the imperial government delivered over to their propaganda. They had to be content with teaching them no more than the symbol of baptism, postponing until a later date the task of eradicating their superstitions, which they preserved intact. To tell the truth, this later date never arrived, and the church adapted to herself as well as she could them and their customs and beliefs. Alexander Hislop also wrote, "To conciliate the pagans to nominal Christianity, Rome, pursuing its usual policy, took measures to get the Christian and pagan festivals amalgamated and, by a complicated but skillful adjustment of the calendar, it was found no difficult matter in general to get paganism and Christianity to shake hands. Historian Will Durant stated, "In general, the church did not so much encourage superstitions as inherit them from the imagination of the people. Pagan festivals dear to the people, or necessary as cathartic moratoriums on morality, reappeared as Christian feasts, and pagan vegetation rites were transformed into Christian liturgy. The celebration of Christ's resurrection took the pagan name of Eostre, the old Teutonic goddess of spring." George William Douglas also noted, "There is no doubt that the church in its early days adopted the old pagan customs and gave a Christian meaning to them. As the festival of Eostre was in celebration of the renewal of life in the spring, it was easy to make it a celebration of the resurrection from the dead of Jesus." The church in question is not the church began by Christ under the leadership of the apostles. The church leaders who tried to redeem heathen holidays were those of the church and state government based in Rome. In fact, in 325 AD, the First Council of Nicaea acknowledged that Easter was not celebrated by the apostles, but would now be declared a Christian holiday more than 300 years after Jesus' death. Notice Emperor Constantine's letter regarding this empire's recently endorsed religion. At this meeting, the question concerning the most holy day of Easter was discussed, and it was resolved by the united judgment of all present that this feast ought to be kept by all and in every place on one and the same day. And first of all, it appeared an unworthy thing that in the celebration of this most holy feast we should follow the practice of the Jews. For we have it in our power, if we abandon their custom, to prolong the due observance of this ordinance to future ages. Beloved brethren, let us with one consent adopt this course, and withdraw ourselves from all participation in their baseness." And so the edict required citizens of the empire to abandon Passover and to celebrate instead Easter. And despite the fact that Christ in the New Testament church observed the Sabbath and Passover and all of God's commanded holy days, the blasphemy of the Council of Nicaea vilifies God's commanded observances and calls them simply a practice of the Jews, when in reality, keeping the Sabbath and holy days is a practice of all faithful people, whether Jew or Gentile, male or female. The Roman Catholic Church soon emerged as the largest religious organization in history when she aligned herself with state leaders in Rome and embraced pagan holidays such as Samhain, which became Halloween, the Saturnalia, that became Christmas, the Lupercalia, which became St. Valentine's Day, and Eostre, which became Easter. The heathen festivals received a makeover in an attempt to repaint them as Christian holidays. However, such a practice is not lawful according to the Bible, and it breaks every commandment of Almighty God. In addition, it does not change what those holidays represent. What may come as a shock to you is that celebrating Easter does not honor Jesus Christ. It is in fact the exact opposite. It dishonors Christ. It's an insult to the faith that he declared to the saints. Why, many neo-pagans are well aware of this truth, and they continue to honor Ishtar, Astarte, Ostara, and Eostre in their spring fertility rituals. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, Wiccans and pagans today also observe Easter. According to one Universalist website, many of those preparing to celebrate Easter may not realize there are others planning to celebrate Ostara at the same time. The two holidays are actually closely related and draw upon similar historical roots. Ostara is essentially the pagan incarnation of the traditional Christian Easter. Ladies and gentlemen, with all of this in mind, it should be of no surprise that the term Easter is not found in the New Testament. Now, some might think the contrary and claim that Easter can be found in a single verse in the King James Version of the Bible. However, the verse in question suffers from inference and mistranslation. Why, the original term found in Acts chapter 12 and verse 4 is the Greek pascha, which means Passover. And notice what the respected biblical scholar Albert Barnes wrote about this term. He said, "There never was a more absurd or unhappy translation than this. The original is simply after the Passover. The word Easter now denotes the festival observed by many Christian churches in honor of the resurrection of the Savior. But the original has no reference to that, nor is there the slightest evidence that any such festival was observed at the time when this book was written. The word Easter is of Saxon origin and is supposed to be derived from Eostre, the goddess of love, or the Venus of the North, in honor of whom a festival was celebrated by our pagan ancestors in the month of April." As we can see, Easter does not commemorate a biblical event, nor is it a Christian holiday. Why, pagan holidays such as Easter truly have nothing to do with true Christianity. Instead, Christians should observe the same holy days that the New Testament church faithfully kept. Why, the Church of God under the leadership of Christ and the apostles observed Passover, Pentecost, and all of the holy days outlined in Leviticus chapter 23. They never observed Easter, and ladies and gentlemen, neither should we. Why, notice the honest words of the authors of the admirable Encyclopedia Britannica. When they wrote, "There is no indication of the observance of the Easter festival in the New Testament or in the writings of the Apostolic Fathers. The first Christians continued to observe the Jewish festivals, though in a new spirit, as commemorations of events which those festivals had foreshadowed. Thus the Passover, with a new conception added to it of Christ as the true paschal lamb and the first fruits from the dead, continued to be observed." Yes, ladies and gentlemen, God commanded specific days to be observed in a prescribed manner, His holy days. And these observances have great meaning, that they outline God's plan of salvation. Sadly, most people malign God's holy days and consider them just Jewish celebrations, or burdensome, in fact. But nowhere in the Bible does God say that His commanded observances are only for specific tribes or to be observed only during certain times of history. Nowhere does the Bible indicate that we can redeem pagan holidays and call them Christian. Why, even the prophecies of future events declare that God's holy days will be observed in the future when Christ returns. And it's time to open your eyes to this truth, that God is a spirit, and those who worship Him must worship Him in spirit and in truth. Easter is not the truth. Why, the only certainty about this holiday is that we can be sure it is inspired by a spirit of disregard and disobedience toward the written Word of God. Why, Easter is a lie, in fact, decorated with bunnies, colored eggs, and marshmallow peeps. And instead of paying homage to Christ, Easter respects the pagan gods of old. Why, the ancient people of Israel fell into the same trap. They claimed to worship God, but they were half-hearted in their attempts. They began mixing heathen religion into God's commanded observances. And notice what God said about their blasphemous religious activities and how His words directly relate to us today. Of ancient Israel, He said, "Her priests have violated my law and profaned my holy things. They have not distinguished between the holy and the unholy, nor have they made known the difference between the unclean and the clean. And they have hidden their eyes from my Sabbaths, so that I am profaned among them." And He also noted through the prophet Amos, I despise your feast days. And the feast days that God hates are those influenced by the Baals and the Ashtoreths, the gods of Syria, the gods of Sidon, the gods of Moab, the gods of the people of Ammon, and the gods of the Philistines. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, Israel forsook God, and they did not serve Him. They served their own holidays of heathen origin, in fact, and that is exactly what people are doing today. If you are one of the millions who think that it doesn't matter what holidays are kept as long as we still believe in Jesus Christ, think again. The activities of Easter are impure and unclean. And as shocking as this might sound, I can tell you with all certainty that Jesus Christ despises Easter. I consider the following words that directly apply to those people who observe Easter today. Christ said, "This people honors me with their lips, but their heart is far from me. And in vain they worship me, teaching as doctrines the commandments of men. For laying aside the commandment of God found in the Bible, you hold the tradition of men." And so Christ related that professing to believe in him, it counts for nothing if we lay aside the commandment of God and keep instead the commandments of men. And Easter is a holiday of men, ungodly and heathen men at that. And notice what another prophetic statement from Christ himself says. "Not everyone who says to me, 'Lord, Lord,' shall enter the kingdom of heaven, but he who does the will of my Father in heaven. Many will say to me in that day, 'Lord, Lord, have we not prophesied in your name, or cast out demons in your name, and have done many wonders in your name?' And I will declare to them, 'I never knew you. Depart from me, you who practice lawlessness.'" Ladies and gentlemen, practicing lawlessness means not keeping God's commandments, including his holy days. It means ignoring God's instructions that tell us to not learn the way of the heathen and attempting to redeem unholy and impure religious rites instead. Why many people today claim that Christ is Lord, but their observance of holidays such as Easter declares that Eostre, Ishtar, or Ostara is Lord instead. And therefore, the activities of believers during Easter Sunday is a worship of Christ in vain, because they do not reflect true belief in the God of the Bible. And if you want to worship Christ in spirit and truth, you must reject the observance of Easter. And there's much more for you to know about this subject. To help you, Quest for Truth is offering a free and informative booklet. The Eternal Church of God produces a variety of literature to help people understand the Bible and how God expects faithful people to live. Today we are featuring the booklet, The Truth About Easter. In addition, we are also offering the booklet, The Resurrection Was Not on Sunday, and Easter or Passover, explaining exactly which day Christians should observe. These booklets mention everything from today's program and much, much more. All of our material is offered free as a service in the public interest with no undesired follow-up. You may visit our website to read or request this literature, or stay tuned, and in just a few moments, we will show you how to receive a free copy of one or more of these booklets. Until next time, this is Terry Moore. Thanks for watching.
If you would like the literature offered on this program, please contact Quest for Truth, P.O. Box 80248, Billings, Montana, zip code 59108, or email us at witness@eternalcog.org.
No one knows the day or hour when the end shall come to pass.